Quand tu veux, Mario, on peut commencer.
Okay, to start. Mesdames, Messieurs, ladies and gentlemen, damas y caballeros, bonsoir, good evening, buenos tardes. We are live from La Belle Province of Quebec, Canada. My name is Mario Jolet. I am the president of MI3 Financial Communication. And on behalf of the MI3 team and our affiliated sponsors, the Canadian Institute of Mining and Metallurgy, the Mineral Resource Analyst Group, Investor Intel and Red Cloud Financial, on vous souhaite à tous, bienvenue, welcome, bienvenidos, bienvenidas to this video conference, Parlons Minier, Let's Talk Mining, Hablamos de Minera. Our title for the conference tonight, L'Équateur, Terre d'opportunités minières uniques, Ecuador, the land of unique mining opportunities, Ecuador, las tierras de las oportunidades mineras únicas. But before we go on, we'd like to make a special salute tonight to the commercial delegate of Ecuador, Mr. Ricardo Valdez of the Canadian Embassy in Ecuador, on the call with us tonight. Thank you, Mr. Valdez, for being with us tonight on this call. And to clearly understand more the uniqueness of the Ecuador, let's welcome our fourth guest for tonight. First, let's welcome Mr. Brooke MacDonald, President and CEO of Cornerstone Capital Resource. Bonsoir, Brooke, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mario, Terry, Eric.
It's always a pleasure to see you, Brooke. To be followed by Dr. Richard Spencer, President of Aurania Resource. Good evening, Mr. Spencer.
Hi, Mario. Good to be with you, and thanks for the invitation.
Thank you very much for being with us. Thirdly, we will have Monsieur Alain Bureau, President of Atico Mining. Bonsoir, Alain. Good evening.
Bonsoir, Mario, and thanks, guys, for having me tonight. It's going to be a great show.
Pleasure, Alain. And lastly, Mr. Christian Kargl-Simard, President and CEO of Adventus Mining. Bonsoir, Monsieur Simard. Good evening. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Bonsoir. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. And just, okay, our moderator for tonight, celle d'abord, okay, our moderator for tonight, let's start with Mr. Eric Lemieux. Bonsoir, Eric, welcome. 30
Good
years
evening,
of,
bonsoir, merci.
30 years of experience, professional geologist, former mining analyst with large Canadian institution. Eric will be on the panel. Myself, Mario Jolet, for those who know me, trader, president of MI3, influencer, marketer, and our mastermind who will be chairing the session tonight, personal friend, Mr. Terry Orsland, 40 years of experience, mining engineer, opening speaker at PDC on the Mental Outlook session, MRAC chairman, president of TSO and Associate in Montreal. Terry, bonsoir. Thank you for being with us.
Buenas tardes, señor.
Buenas tardes. Terry, just before you go on, because I know you want to ask our guest tonight a question, I'd like to remind our attendees, if you have any question, feel free to use the chat button that you see at the bottom of your screen. You can insert your question, and after the fourth presentation of Mr. Simard, then we will have a Q&A session in which I know Terry will have some questions, same as Eric, same as me, but also we take some questions from the public, and we make sure we address it to the right company. At the end, you're going to see also that we have the name of the people and the email that you can reach if ever your question is not answered, or also sometimes we send questions because we don't have time. Sometimes we have too many questions. Once again, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for taking some time to listen on the Ecuador video conference special. I'm going to hand up the mic to you, Terry. Thank you.
Thanks, Mario. Thanks to MI3. Thanks to Luc. Thanks for hosting this particular evening on Ecuador. I think the timing is quite evident, quite opportunistic. We had elections on Sunday. We talk about that in a few minutes, but 4 days after the election, and the administration will take control of the country sometime in late May. We're governing for the next few years. We'll talk about that as well. I don't want to talk much about Ecuador per se without my experts that will talk about it tonight. But in essence, Ecuador is seeing ups and downs and ups again because the opportunities and times of the mining industry change over a period of time. And we've seen I think after the Peru-Ecuador interruption on the border side, we've seen a boom for a little while, discovery of Fruta del Norte. And then we got into a slow period of the policy changes, then major revision of the policy after 8 years or so of different regime. And we've seen today quite a crowd of the majors and mid-sized companies and juniors in Ecuador. In fact, I must say, I haven't seen that kind of a rapid influence on the mining scene since the Chile days that when I was there back in the 70s and early 80s. I am very glad that we have 4 companies today. There'll be more. We're going to have another session very soon with the other participants in Ecuador. I'd like to get a panel going, Lick, if you don't mind, with the CEOs, with Alain, Richard Spencer, Brooke, and as well as the Christian, if you don't mind. Let me post some questions about why, if you can unmute them, please. I think the first question really is, why are you in Ecuador? I'm sure you're going to talk about the geology that has no political borders, regime change, and all, but you all got different aspirations being in Ecuador. Maybe we start with you, Brooke. You're one of the early ones.
Yeah, thank you, Terry. Cornerstone has been in Ecuador since about 2005. And Ivan Crepeau, our vice president of exploration, lived there and has been there since about 2006 until a couple of years ago when he's now based in Chile. I think Ecuador is the last underexplored portion of the Andes, one of the few places where mineralization just outcrops on the side of the highway. If you drive down the road with a geologist, they're always asking you, can you pull over for a minute? And they get out with their rock hammer and start taking pictures. And it's really an undiscovered country. And so, as you say, there have been some ups and downs, but it's been 2 steps forward, 1 back, but we're finally getting there. And all of a sudden we're seeing really, really good gold prices to the future, excellent copper prices, good silver prices. And so all the majors are now there. When Cornerstone got there when we acquired Cascabel back in 2011, we couldn't find a major that was interested in coming there to look at the project. And now all the majors are there. Anglo has a big office. BHP has a big office. I can't think of a better place to be exploring. The taxes are now, after the government, the government of Rafael Correa brought in Wood Mackenzie. They redid the tax regime to make it competitive with Mexico, Chile, Peru, Colombia, and Brazil. And now we have a brand new government, a known quantity, ex-banker and center-right candidate Guillermo Lasso. And so we're really looking forward to advancing our projects and seeing the other companies on the panel and our friends in the Chamber of Mines do the same.
Great, Brooke. Thanks for the introduction. And Richard, coming to you, you've been in the country for a while. You got associated with Solaris. Keith Barron has been there for Fruta del Norte discovery, and you've been around the world. What really attractive merits of the Ecuador that you found, which is far more than you expected?
Terry, I think it's geologically it's an amazing country. It is one of the last frontiers around the world for a host of different things. But let's not oversimplify things. It is a difficult country to explore in, and that's why one of the big reasons that there is so much opportunity now. You know, I lived here for 10 years. Our two kids were born here back in the mid-90s. And, you know, that's when we made a bunch of copper porphyry discoveries. But, you know, it's a difficult country because particularly in the area that we're in, it's completely jungle covered. And, you know, you go in with one concept, which ours was gold, and suddenly you're tripping over copper, you're tripping over silver, zinc. And so you just don't know what's around the corner. And that just talks to the opportunity that there is in this country. But it takes an enormous amount of dedication. It takes courage to explore in this country. And, you know, Cornerstone, I mean, the fact that, you know, they couldn't get partners up at Cascabel originally, I think that says it all. I mean, it takes the young companies with guts to explore in this country, and now thanks to the success of those explorers and the producers that are now coming in, and Lundin's exemplary production at and putting Fruta del Norte into production. You know, we've now got the table absolutely set for a really exciting couple of years or couple of decades, I should say. And I think we've got a very responsible government coming into power shortly. So exciting times.
Fantastic. We're going to hear about your exploration program and discoveries, Richard, and Brooke. We're going to talk about you being part of a major discovery in due course. Just coming into Alain Bureau, you have two VMSs, one in Colombia, one in Ecuador. I guess you focused on the VMS in essence, or are you looking for other geological models?
Yeah, we look at you know, high grade, good bottom line project. That's what we're looking for. And obviously the VMS and the two VMS we have are very similar. These are the kind of deposits you can find in Ecuador. The Ecuador, as the other gentlemen were mentioning, there's so many discovery that will come out of that country in the next 10 years. It will be unbelievable. I've had a chance of working since the 90s in Latin America. Basically spent my life in Latin America. That's my country number 9. And you know, I think Ecuador, same thing as what was Peru 25 years ago. It's open for business, and that's what I think a lot of us that are a little bit of we do have a little bit of Indiana Jones blood in our body. That's what we're looking for. Not just working in an office, but be able to be exposed to a great country where you can actually find real good treasure. So everybody on that call, I think we all have a little bit of the gold of the community bug, and that's what drove us into Ecuador. It's a place that, like I said, you're going to see a lot of very, very nice discoveries in the upcoming years. Fantastic.
Alain, you know, exploration is addictive, but when you discover something, it becomes serious addiction. So keep going. Christian, you've been around, you've been a mining analyst our days, and I've seen you many times in action. You are the ultimate entrepreneur. You went to Ecuador. Not a surprise that you're there. What was your vision at the time, and how would you interpret it today?
Yeah, in late 2016, I left a career in investment banking to start Adventus, and it was a blank sheet of paper with big money behind me. I had a license to build a business anywhere in the world. I looked at 240 assets in 25 countries. The relationship with Ecuador really started with, I think, a gentleman that most people know on this call, a guy named Freddie Salazar, an Ecuadorian, very successful explorer. As an investment banker, I went down to Ecuador in 2008, 2009 after the discovery of El Domo in the Curipamba district. And I kept in touch with him for close, I guess it was 8-9 years. I was one of the gringos, I guess he trusted. So there was already a connection to Ecuador on what I definitely thought was a mine with El Domo in the interesting district. The conversations continued. We got to a deal that was mutually beneficial. I convinced my management team and board, which initially were shocked that I was considering Ecuador, but after a few discussions, really got excited. and the rest is history. And we've continued to work with Freddie Salazar to build a portfolio of assets together in the country that have a mix of exploration and also development. But the other thing that was very clear from the beginning was talking to the government of Ecuador. I hadn't met a more proactive group in any other country globally. They really wanted investment. They really wanted mining to become a pillar of the economy. Entering Ecuador with a seasoned group, an Ecuadorian group, was key to us. I don't think we would have entered without one. And having been in Ecuador, I would say it's 3 steps forward, 1 step back, rather than Brooke, what he said, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's, you know, that 1 step back, you don't know what it is until you see it. But we came into the country, I think, at the right time, and it's going to be a fantastic few years ahead.
Fantastic, Christian. Just for our audience, we should say that we're going to see some spectacular presentations, the next our 4 speakers. And the process essentially is that each going to make their own presentation. At the end of the presentations, we will have the Q&A. Audience is encouraged to put their questions on the chat. So we'll monitor it, Eric and I. And before we start off, I welcome again our Central American audience here. I see Ricardo Valdez again from the Panamanian Embassy, from the Canadian Embassy in Panama, and also other audience we have from Panama, as a matter of fact, attending this session. And we're all eager to hear the advances. One thing you guys haven't mentioned are the amount of majors that exist in the country. And I'm going to have a quick memory, maybe list of it: BHPs and Fortescues and Anglo American, and who else am I missing here? They're all there. Newcrest, of course, they're all there. And they're quite seldom that we see a good combination of mid-sized companies and the seniors in the same. And most of the seniors are actually doing joint ventures and participating and looking for the opportunity for themselves. So with that, I will let Brooke to start with his presentation, and then we roll every 12 minutes into other presentations, and we come with the Q&As. Brooke, you go first.
Thank you, Terry. Terry, I'm going to rely on my IT manager, Ken Primer, to start our presentation.
I'm Brooke MacDonald. I'm the CEO of Cornerstone, and I'll be very pleased to be your guide today on a video tour of Cornerstone and its projects. I'll have a few slides to share with you, plus 2 short videos on our CSR activities in Ecuador. I'll be making some forward-looking statements today. Cornerstone is a junior explorer listed on the Toronto Venture Stock Exchange under the symbol CGP. We also trade over the counter in New York under the symbol CTNXF. Our flagship asset is a 21.4% interest in the exciting Cascabel project in Ecuador, containing the Alpala deposit, probably the largest undeveloped gold-enriched copper porphyry deposit in the world, not controlled by a major mining company. We'll focus on Cascabel, and then we'll move to a few of our other projects in Ecuador, the last underexplored part of the Andes Mountains. I don't have enough time to cover all our projects, so please visit our website for the full corporate presentation. Our 21.4% interest in Cascabel is composed of a 15% interest carried through to bankable feasibility study, repayable at LIBOR plus 2% out of our share of earnings or dividends from a mine, plus 7.5% of the shares of our joint venture partner and the project operator, SolGold. Alpala is a tier 1 resource containing over 21 million ounces of gold, 21 billion pounds of copper, 92 million ounces of silver in the measured and indicated categories, 2/3 of which is in the measured category. There is so much gold in the Alpala deposit. In January, it was ranked by mining.com as one of the world's top 10 gold development projects. The high-grade core alone has more than 12 million ounces of gold and 8 billion pounds of copper. Here's a visual depiction of the Alpala deposit. This will be a block cave operation, hopefully with an assist from mineralization found closer to surface in the upper zone of Alpala, or on one of a number of satellite targets on Cascabel, one of which, called Tandayama America, is currently being drilled. Now I'd like to show you a short video shot in one of the communities around the Cascabel project. The video tells the story of how Cornerstone got involved there in 2012 when we were still the operator, what things are like in the community today due to the excellent work continued there by our partner SolGold, and is an example of how we approach community and social responsibility everywhere in Ecuador.
Mi nombre es María Elisa Manteca. Pues ahorita nos encontramos pues en la comuna Guayupe, provincia de Imbabura. Esta es la parroquia La Carolina, está compuesta por 19 comunidades, donde pues Cornerstone empezó a trabajar aquí. Siempre han respetado las autoridades locales, a la socialización, siempre visitaban primero a nosotros como autoridades y nosotros hacíamos los recorridos, los monitoreos para ver cómo avanza y cuáles son pues los trabajos que va a venir a hacer la empresa. Ha ayudado muchísimo a generar empleo y como ahora nosotros pues estamos viendo que están socializando, hay más acercamiento a la gente, entonces eso ayuda. Todos los que están trabajando y toda la gente ha mejorado su calidad de vida, ha mejorado sus condiciones. Tenemos proyectos grandes, planes de reforestación, viveros y todo eso, que están incluidos dentro de este desarrollo hacia la sociedad y hacia las comunidades. Yo con mi emprendimiento no puedo quejarme de nada porque han sido mis clientes primeros también. Ellos vinieron aquí con toda la confianza y toda la seguridad aquí a mi casa y yo les ofrecí pues mi espacio que he creado justamente para dar un servicio de calidad y también para ser portadora de las buenas nuevas. A Cornerstone que siga adelante, que siga y que siempre están bienvenidos. Esperemos que esta pandemia pase rápido y volvamos a ser el equipo que somos y que trabajemos por el bienestar de todos y del país y en especial de nuestra gente de la zona.
BHP, the largest mining company in the world, owns 13.6% of SolGold, and Newcrest Mining, the largest gold company in Australia, owns 13.5%, or approximately 11.5% of Cascabel each. Franco-Nevada, the royalty company, last year provided $100 million of feasibility study funding to SolGold for a 1% net smelter return on SolGold's share of the project. A pre-feasibility study is expected around the end of 2021. We're now looking at a slightly smaller, more selective operation that we think we can bring into production much faster than the previous plan, mining 30% less material while still producing the same amount of copper. The focus will be on the high-grade core of 359 million tons, grading 1.47% copper equivalent, with higher grade material block cave mined in the early stages, lower capital expenditure, a reassessment of the potential for near surface mining options at the Alpala deposit, and as I mentioned, the drilling of satellite targets Tandayama America, Aguinyaga, and Moran to investigate the potential for additional resource. We have 34.1 million basic shares outstanding, 39 million fully diluted, and we have a strong treasury position that allows us to continue with our prospect generator business model as Cascabel continues with funding solely from operator SolGold, Caña Brava in Ecuador, and Miocene in Chile funded by Newcrest, and the Bramaderos project in Ecuador funded by Sunstone Metals. You can learn more about Miocene and Bramaderos on our website. Our three largest shareholders are one of the most successful Bay Street financial advisors to the mining industry, Maxit Capital, led by Bob Sanga, entrepreneur and professional investor Greg Chimandi. Greg was the co-founder of Gildan Activewear and its former chairman and CEO, the former chairman and co-owner of Europe's Best Frozen Foods, and the former executive chairman of Richmont Mines, Inc. And Rosso Asset Management, a Toronto-based group of highly successful mining funds led by Warren Irwin. Cornerstone is undervalued. We traded a significant discount to SolGold, well below the Canadian $8.50 per share price paid by our top 3 shareholders for Cornerstone. BHP's weighted average cost of SolGold would imply $11 Canadian a share for Cornerstone, and Newcrest's last block would imply $13 Canadian a share. Precedent transactions at 7 cents per pound of copper equivalent resource in the ground would imply Canadian $18 a share for Cornerstone. Please see a fact sheet on our website at www.cornerstoneresources.com for additional reasons. In 2016, we entered into a strategic exploration alliance, or SEA, with ANAMI, Ecuador's state mining company, where we are earning an 84% interest in 9 highly prospective copper and gold concessions in the same underexplored belt of northwest Ecuador as Cascabel. These are early stage properties, but the size and intensity of the anomalies are similar to those we discovered at Cascabel at the same stage in 2012-13. Espejo should be drill ready by the fourth quarter of 2021 and is now available for a farm-in agreement with a major company. Please see our news releases of February 27, 2020 and March 4, 2021 for more information on the ANAMI SEA and the Espejo and Rio Magdalena projects within it. Now we're going to show a video of our CSR activities at the Rio Magdalena project.
Mi nombre es Jimena Farinango, soy la presidenta de la Comuna Magdalena Alto, Parroquia García Moreno, Cantón Cotacachi, provincia de Imbabura. Muy gustosa y agradecida con la empresa, ya que a través del fondo de inversión que se firma con la comunidad Magdalena Alto y priorizada en una asamblea comunitaria, se decidió hacer esta gestión tema Internet, ya que es un beneficio para todas las personas en mi comunidad.
Aquí Internet no había. Cuando ya mis hijos entraron a estudiar, teníamos que pagar porque había solo en una sola casa. Eso teníamos que hacer, pero viendo las necesidades que aquí ha habido en la comunidad, la empresa Cornerstone nos ha ayudado y han hecho las gestiones para que así los niños tengan las posibilidades de seguir estudiando.
Nos preocupábamos por el estudio de nuestros hijos, que no teníamos internet y tenían que mis hijos ir para arriba a una loma, o sea, a estudiar. Llueva no llueva o en solazos tenían que estar ahí estudiando y solo a recibir tareas nomás, y venían para acá a la casa y realizaban las tareas y tenían que subir a enviar las tareas.
Es bastante beneficioso y agradecer también a la empresa de Cornerstone que nos apoyó. Gracias a ellos están estudiando por medio del internet.
Pero hoy con el internet estamos siendo muy beneficiados y es de mucho. Y también como para mí, yo como pequeño productor que estoy ahorita metido en el mundo de café, también me sirve porque entro a muchas páginas y estoy conociendo lo que es el mundo del café y estoy metido en eso también.
Por esta pandemia no pueden salir, entonces el estudio está aquí en la casa y para ellos es una ayuda demasiado porque con eso pueden presentar ellos todos los deberes.
En mi comuna Magdalena Alto hemos sido beneficiados 42 familias. Este tema del internet es un sueño hecho realidad para la comunidad y las obras que también están priorizadas como en asamblea se decidió se puedan concluir y podamos seguir adelante así paso a paso.
Bahia Maria is a 100% gold copper project bordering the northeast corner of Lumina Gold's Greater Cangrejos project, where Lumina has announced a resource of 10.4 million ounces in the indicated category, plus 6.3 million ounces in the inferred category. Bahia Maria has exceptionally high gold content in stream sediment and free gold panned over the entire property. Soil geochemistry has outlined a 3-kilometer by 2-kilometer gold copper in-soil porphyry-style anomaly in the center of the concession, and 7 mineralized prospects. The project is almost drill ready. It has an environmental registration for surface exploration granted in January 2020 that we will seek to apply to amend to permit scout drilling once final drill targets are identified. We think it will be fully permitted by sometime in the third quarter, and all we need now is a funding partner. We have an option to own 100% of the Caña Brava property that hosts epithermal gold-silver targets on top of shallow porphyry gold-copper style mineralization. This project is drill ready and has an environmental registration allowing for scout drilling. A phase 1 drill program of 15 holes, 6,000 meters, is planned for the third quarter of 2021 and is being funded by Newcrest, which is earning an interest in the project. Details of the arrangement with Newcrest can be found on our website. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to learn more about us, please email us at ir@cornerstoneresources.ca. We hope you'll consider adding Cornerstone to your portfolio. We believe that sooner or later, both Cornerstone and SolGold will be acquired by a major mining company or companies. As the copper price remains strong, more and more companies will want copper projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Brooke. Thank you, Brooke. It's amazing that you can be two places at the same time. You're sitting here and you did it very well. I think one thing we should take away from Brooke's presentation, as we're gonna see from the other parties, are the contact with the indigenous and as well as the local landowners. And I'm sure ARU will talk about it as well. And it's been another good example of how the mining companies actually handle the
social change. Just the internet, getting them the internet in smaller villages.
Yeah, well, we gotta do the same thing to get in the Canadian North. We haven't got there. It's very far in Canadian North yet, okay?
Yeah.
Dr. Richard Spencer is next, and they're in Ecuador, they're in Peru, and their discoveries and their geological knowledge and expertise and experience is unprecedented. Thanks, Richard. The floor is yours.
Great, thanks, Terry. Thanks, everyone. I just wanted to give a quick overview of Aurania, and you know, I'm delighted that Brooke highlighted the CSR component of his work and Cornerstone's work. That is an absolute must in any exploration program and mining development program in Ecuador. You know, the days of being able to sort of swan in and do one's own thing are gone. One absolutely has to show respect for the communities, knock on their doors, explain what one would like to do in their in the area controlled by them, and that is the first step. The kind of courtesy that one would expect from anyone who's coming into your backyard and you know going to look around there. So I'm delighted to see that, and you know, obviously at Aurania, that is an absolute pillar of our exploration. No exploration geologist ever sets foot on the ground without the permission of the community that controls that ground, irrespective of what one's legal right is from the government. I'm going to be making forward-looking statements, and sorry, I'm not, okay, there the screen is changing. You know, the question as to why we're in Ecuador, a lot of the work and the recent discoveries, Cangrejos and Cascabel and Jurimagua, have come out of the main Andean chain, which runs up into Colombia and through down into Peru. But in fact, Ecuador's two modern mines are in an older belt, about 150 million years old, that is in the sort of southeastern part of Ecuador, right up against the Peruvian border. The southern part of that is called the Cordillera del Condor, and that's where Lundin's Fruta del Norte deposit has gone into production, and also the Mirador open pit copper deposit. And I just want to focus in a little more on that southeastern part of Ecuador. Sorry, guys, I'm yeah, I gather that I'm not in slideshow mode. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is focusing in on that southeastern part of Ecuador. The white line there is the Peruvian border, and Aurania's concession area is shown up in the red in the north, about 208,000 hectares. But you know what I wanted to highlight is that this is an absolutely emerging gold and copper belt. I mean, we know about Fruta del Norte going into production. We know about Mirador, Ecuador's first open pit copper mine going into production. But we've also got to highlight Solaris's Warintza deposit. You know, that was found back in the mid-90s, but these guys are really drilling it down to about 1 kilometer or so and getting 1% copper equivalent grades. And this belt is starting to build the momentum towards becoming one of the main drivers in Ecuador and South America in terms of not only its copper potential, but its gold potential as well. And that is the reason that we took up that ground. There's a historic component that Keith Barron was very much involved with. We believe that there are 2 old Spanish mines on this particular in this particular area, but our exploration has been absolutely standard exploration that will pick up any other mineralization that's in there, not only gold. And we're in this belt because it's the extension of this very well endowed gold and copper belt. You know, one of the things that that has drawn us to Ecuador is the quality of the people. You know, we obviously have a Canadian-based team, which is pretty minimal, but all the rest of the people, all the rest of the team is Ecuadorian. Our only guy on the ground that is a foreigner is JP Pallier. So head of CSR, who is opening the way for us in all of these indigenous communities. We're dealing with 54 indigenous communities within our area. Maria Beru, she is from Loja, running the environmental component of our exploration. Impeccable job to the extent that, you know, we're now ISO 14001 registered, and the rest of the group are Ecuadorian as well. I cannot speak highly enough of the dedication of this group of people in extremely tough conditions. We've got a massive land package, and one of the questions that we get is, look, you know, how do you prioritize these targets for drilling? We've got an endless number of targets for drilling. And, you know, it's a very difficult question because very often the most exciting target is not necessarily the most obvious target. So we've got to integrate all these different layers of data. And very often the biggest discovery comes from a subtle feature that shows up through most of the layers of data. And that's what we're busy with at the moment. Our exploration has been pretty broad-based. It's pretty simple. And we've come up with gold targets, silver targets, and copper. And I'm just going to just touch on a couple of these at the moment. Where we're drilling today is Curiyawi, which is a gold and copper target. On the silver side, Atico is scheduled for drilling, and the drill will be turning on N1 over very, very shortly. We basically are, it's just a hiatus in that, and we're carrying on drilling there, and that's a copper target. So where we stand at the moment, we've got 2 rigs in the field, a very lightweight rig that's drilling at N1 that's got capacity to drill down to just over 700 meters. We pushed it as far as we could to get to that 722. And then a bigger rig down in Curiyawi, and that's at about 500 meters depth at the moment. But this is the sequence of projects that is lined up for drilling. And I would also draw your attention to the bottom right-hand side there. All the time, the targets are jostling for position to be the next project in line for drilling, for scout drilling. And that jostling is going on all the time as the geologists come in from the field. So that lineup on the bottom right there is going to change literally from every couple of weeks. Just in terms of where we're drilling at the moment, St-Pierre, we had a press release out on that a couple of days ago. A massive area, which I'll talk about, right in the middle of the concession area, and where we're drilling at the moment is Senken N1, and the second rig down towards the southern part of the concession area at Kuriyawi. The Kuriyawi target is an area that we've got good geology on surface. We're excited about what we're seeing in the geology, both in terms of epithermal blocks that are lying around for gold and silver potential, but also blocks of mineralized porphyry. So there's potential for a porphyry at depth that is a copper orientated target, and a so-called epithermal that's higher up that is a gold silver target. So on profile A, these are vertical cuts through the mobile MT data. The pink and warm colors are conductors. The pink that lies parallel to the surface is just the surface clay. That's the depth of weathering, and the clay is a really good conductor, and so that's why that always lights up. But what we're focused on is that finger-shaped thing that's sticking up from depth, a conductor. And what's exciting is that around it is a resistor that could be silicification, that deep blue color. And that drilling is it's down at about 500 meters at the moment. The second area that I just wanted to highlight, because it's got significance in terms of not only what we see on the screen, but in terms of the copper as well. St-Pierre is a massive silver zinc system. It is one of these systems where the mineralization is in layers parallel to the sedimentary layering, and also in faults. But what we're excited about here is, to form any deposit, irrespective of what people call them, at the end of the day, you need a source of metal. You need three things. You need a source of metal. You need a transport mechanism to get that metal to the area where it's going to be deposited. And you need some way of bringing that metal out of solution. You need those three things. At St-Pierre, we know more or less where the metal is coming from. That's not, it doesn't bug us too much. But what we were concerned about is how we get the metal into the place where it's going to be precipitated. And the mapping that's just come back from St-Pierre that we mentioned in the press release a couple of days ago, we're seeing a sandstone in the middle of the package. And that is the pipeline, if you like, that allows those mineralizing fluids to come into that area, flow tens of kilometers, if need be, into that area where there are reactive rocks, there are the limestones, there's bitumen in the limestone, and that is the thing that actually traps the metal, whatever it is, in that rock, and potentially makes a deposit out of it if it's concentrated enough. So the exciting thing about St-Pierre is that it is a silver zinc target on its own, but the hugely important significance of it is that now that we know that mineralizing mechanism, we know what that pipeline is to get the metal into that depositional site. We know where to look in the pile of the sediments for related copper. And I'll come back to the copper in a minute. It may sound a bit strange to be talking about silver, zinc, and then suddenly be talking about copper, but we believe very strongly that they're related. And the reason that they are, we believe that they are related is on, let's not worry about the right-hand side. Let's just look at the left-hand side. This is the arrangement of metals in the Kupferschiefer, which has been in production for copper and silver for millennia. And there's this very systematic change from copper closest to the source of where the mineralizing fluids are coming up, through lead to zinc. That is a plan view and also a sort of vertical slice. And what we believe we've got at St-Pierre is the sort of turquoise or greeny turquoise side of that or end of that where we've got zinc and silver. And in St-Pierre, we're beginning to see a lead zone as well. And what we're excited about is that if we follow that layer out from the zinc through the lead, we should get to the copper area which we believe will be the same sort of style of copper mineralization, copper-silver mineralization as the Kupferschiefer. And, we've taken a very big, broad approach to that. We looked across the border in Peru. The Kupferschiefer extends over hundreds of kilometers, the Zambian copper belt as well. And we thought, okay, if we are seeing true sediment-hosted copper-silver in Ecuador, which we believe we are, we've got to think on a hundreds of kilometer scale. And that's what induced us to take up a very large land position in Peru as well. And we're applying those same regional concepts of the metal zoning from copper to lead to zinc in our exploration. So where we stand at the moment is fully diluted. We're at about 56 million shares, and we've got some warrants and options in there as well. So just over 100 million market cap. So nice tight share structure. And where we stand at the moment, I mean, we've got 2 drills turning at the moment, and we've got St-Pierre lined up for the silver zinc mineralization, the testing of the continuity of that mineralization. We've got a board and management team that have done this grassroots exploration and come up with multiple discoveries before. We're in exactly the same kind of land package. We're just trying to do it again. And, we like our land package. It's absolutely on trend of one of the most exciting gold and copper belts in the Andes. And in terms of follow-up, Keith and I are in the field a lot of the time. The most reliable contact is Carolyn Muir. She can always track us down, and we would try to answer any of your questions. So thanks very much for your time. And I look forward to trying to answer your questions. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Richard. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions following up. In essence, you mentioned about the land position you have, and so will, I'm sure, Christian and Alain. Thing is that the land position is not open anymore, from what I understand. Am I correct? Like, they haven't allocated any acreage for a long time. Am I right, Richard?
Yeah, that's correct. It's been the cadastro has been closed for about 2 years, and we expect that to change going forward at a logical timing with the new government.
Yeah, got it. We'll come back with the questions. Yes, Mario.
What's the process of acquiring land in their country?
Well, okay, maybe quickly, Richard, do you want to talk about that?
Tell me about it later, okay? Question mark.
It's so when the cadastro was closed, it got overwhelmed, and the government believed that it was being abused a little bit. They Wood Mackenzie made a suggestion of a system that ended up actually backfiring on the Ecuadorian government. The process was that anyone who was qualified, and you had to be qualified on a technical basis, and you had to show that you were financially qualified, could apply for any concession up to a maximum size of 5,000 hectares. Once you made that application, you made your application, and you said how much you were going to spend on that concession over over the first 4 years, which is the initial exploration period. And that was then sealed. Then any other company could then apply for that same concession area. And if they beat your monetary promise and what you were going to spend in the first 4 years, it was a so-called Swiss challenge, then you could compete. You could put in a second offer if the third party had offered up to 2 times what you had offered. If it had offered 2.1 times or more than that of what you had offered, the concession automatically went to your competitor. And that was supposed to be there to help sort of equalize things and remove or minimize speculation. Excuse me. But what ended up happening is an absolutely ridiculous situation where someone would go in and with their prior knowledge and their technical ability and all that apply for a concession. And then someone would come in and say, okay, I want that concession, and put in their sealed bid for that concession an amount of money that was just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, what actually shut the system down was an offer to spend, I think it was 238 million in 4 years. And the Ecuadorians just said, and that was a foreign company, it wasn't Ecuadorians, and the Ecuadorians just said, ciao, this is enough. This is just total blatant abuse. No one can possibly spend that amount of money in a 4-year period. So that's what shut the system down, and we've been waiting for a modification. So when the cadastral reopens for staking, we're not exactly sure how it's going to reopen, because the Swiss challenge worked to a point, but then it just got completely abused.
Okay, thank you. Terry, to you, mon ami.
Thank you, Richard. Alain, the floor is yours.
I'll just share my screen. You guys can see my screen?
Parfait, mon Alain. Merci.
Très bien. So yes, my name is Alain Bureau. I'm president of Atico Mining Corporation. With me tonight, Igor Dutina, who is in charge of business development and also relation with our investors. Same thing, a lot of us who lives and are in different projects in Ecuador, we're actually spending a lot of time on the ground. So if you can't reach me, you're more than welcome to reach Igor. At any question and any time you would have a question, and I think Mario will distribute the different emails of everyone. So I'm starting by saying that Terence kind of stole my first line when introduced why are we going after a VMS and why we're in South America. And that's a little bit my introduction. Obviously, I'm going to be making in that presentation some forward-looking statement. So I think everybody knows what the rule is, and we'll try to keep it as 2 feet on the ground as we can. So linked to the VMS, why are we chasing 2 VMS? A lot of you guys on the line know my personal story. I was born in the Noranda Mine Hospital, so I started basically day one in the mining industry. And Noranda was built on the back of one of the giant VMS that we had in the Abitibi region. My first job is 16 years old. I was working in the process plant of this VMS, and I saw how this was transformed. How did it transform a full company? So Noranda now belongs to the bigger company Glencore. It's still working after 100 years of mining a VMS. And I worked for a second company called Agnico Eagle for many years. And same thing with their La Ronde mine. It was a foundation of being able to develop a VMS that was a small mine at the beginning, but ended up being, you know, the cornerstone, no pun intended here, of the cornerstone of their success. So through a VMS that can be put rapidly into production and come up with cash flow, this is what we're attracted to. We're attracted to good cash flow and high grade project, and those can be still found in Ecuador. The story about Atico, the 2 VMS now are in the hand of a company that is keep on growing, but at the same time is producing. So we have a producing asset in Colombia, and we're going to go through it in few slides. And we have this very good and high grade project in Ecuador. We are still on the hunt for a third project, so we're still very active reviewing any projects that are available of a high grade, and we have been developing and building quite a big team in terms of successful underground operation and good success in the exploration field. Corporate overview, we were in a market cap of around $66 million. We have 119 million shares out there. We have some of the shareholders are from, the major shareholders are from New York, Ingalls and Schneider, and some of them from Europe, Terra Capital, Gold 2000, and Jonathan Goodman through Metaform Investment out of Toronto. The management and directors still own a lot of big piece, 16%, and that links me into introducing who is in the management. I work with a fantastic family called the Ganosa family. They are well renowned in the mining industry. They are behind the success of Fortuna Silver. So Fortuna Silver decided they were going through some projects, and they were getting a lot on their desk of copper and gold project, and they started to open another vehicle that would handle, instead of just the silver, they would handle copper and gold project, and that's how it got started. So the Ganosa family are also in the management team. Fernando Ganosa is the CEO, and we do have Jorge, who is our chairman. So very, very competent, very knowledgeable. And I think I can repeat also that on the call, I was born in Canada. Igor is Canadian, but the rest of the team, they're all Latin America. So we have over 700 employees. And they're all from Latin America, from Peru, Colombia, Ecuador, Mexico, Chile. So really tight group of good management and good workers with a lot of experience. As I was saying, the two project is the producing project in El Roble, and our project that we're going to be spending a little bit more time since we're on the Ecuador presentation. So this is the drilling project that we're advancing right now on fast track. So El Roble mine, just to not stretch too much, but it's very important to mention that this project was taken in 2013 from an artisanal operation. And a very good negotiation was done with the partner. He didn't have any more resource in a reserve. A deal was done with the Ganosa family. They've been able to crank the output from 250 tons per day to 1,000 tons per day, lower the incidence rate, and bring a lot of new technology in operating the mine. Now we are producing around 5 million tons of copper every quarter. And we're producing at a very low cost, at around $1, per pound of copper. If you look at today's copper price was $4.20, so you can look at it's a very high margin operation that we do have in Colombia. We own 90%. 10% is still in the hand of the local partner, who's pretty happy because in 2013 he was looking at closing the mine, and with the team now he's still reaping 10% of the production of the mine after all these years. We've been very successful in Colombia in doing exploration because we replaced everything we mined. So this mine's been working for 30 years. A lot of people are saying our 3 to 4 years of mine life, but this mine's been 3 to 4 years of mine life for 30 years. So it's a common thing in those smaller mines. So it gives a very, very good cash flow. And we do have also a nice package that we're going to look at, land package that we're going to look where it's very prospective to be able to find numerous other VMS. The cash flow from operation based on the two latest quarter, cash flow from operation, 8 million. All in sustained capital, 145. And as I was saying, our C1 cost is only $1.05 per pound of copper. So a very, very large margin on what we're doing. We're still on target with in the last 2 quarters with 10 million pounds of copper produced. What is also interesting is everyone know that during the last quarter that we're coming up with our financials in few days, the copper price has jumped. So you're going to have some really positive surprise on our upcoming financials. The exploration program on the El Roble. So this is the picture of the mine that we've been able to expand and get to 1,000 tons per day. The land package is over 6,000 hectares of a very prospective land package. But what we've seen is a little bit like the story I was telling you about La Ronde. They started mining on the surface and they kept on finding more and more as they went down. So that's the story about El Roble. As they drill down, they've been able to find other pods of high-grade material, and they've been able also to develop mining techniques that was very low cost and at the same time understand the rocks that they were in. So now that you learn all this, you can apply it to a much larger on the regional scale to be able to find additional VMS mineralization along a trend that is going north to south. And we're right in the middle operating really with the mine. But along there's a blacture and the contact with the blacture and the rest of the rock on the regional level are where you have those traps or VMS. And right now we have numerous 21 drill target that we're going to be drilling in the upcoming 24 months. We have the largest exploration budget ever. We're going to be spending a minimum of 20,000 meters of drilling this year between the two projects. And that's the bottom budget for drilling. Well, it's going to go up from there. So 20,000 per year. On the Ecuador side, this is a project that we're on an earn-in. It also belongs to a local partner. As a local partner, we have the possibility to earn all the way up to 75%. The property is 2,300 hectares. It's a straight line from our project up north in Colombia. So as you come down, you're going to see the same kind of trend that goes north to south into these VMS territory. What we have is also a very high grade VMS located right in the middle of the country. What is interesting, it's only 2.5 hours from Quito on a very spectacular road. We actually are right on the side of the road that connects Quito to the main port, Guayaquil. So you're basically on the best road you can have in this country, all the way up to when you enter the concession. It takes about 15 minutes from the main highway to our project to get there. We don't have any indigenous people in the region. This is mostly agricultural land. What is interesting, and as you see on the slides, a few years back, we were a little bit working alone. A lot of the company on this call were working alone in their corner. Now it's populated with all these major companies that are coming in either JV or looking for good opportunity in the country. The VMS that we have now, we do have 2 million tons at close to 13 grams per ton gold equivalent, very high grade. So we're drilling through, you know, in some of the latest press release, you've seen that we often have over 2 ounces of gold on really thick width with 10 to 14% copper. And when we get into the heart of these deposits, this is what you find. Right now, we started drilling, and as we're speaking, we have 2 drill rigs working on the project, and we're going to be adding a third one to do more of the regional exploration. So on this is the 2 blocks that we have. We're seeing now, since we've been starting to drill, that those 2 blocks that we thought were totally separated do own a lot of mineral in between them, and there's a nice continuity at the bottom. The kind of grade of the total package is 4 grams per ton gold and 0.3% copper and over 4% zinc. So very, very high grade. Here you can see that a lot of the high grade are close to surface, so it's going to be really nice to put a mining plan around that. And we found a third zone that is called the Gattuso zone. So you've seen some of the results we got from that zone. So we see there's a nice continuity from south to north, and we're going to be launching, like I said, a third drill rig even further north to find more tonnage out of that project. Significant exploration potential, as I said, it's all oriented south-north, 9-kilometer trend of very prospective land. I think as I'm following on the importance of being integrated with the life of these people that are seeing a lot of the time the mining company as their only real source of finding a job, being able to grow with you. We're doing a lot of obviously training of the people, but at the same time, I think everybody and you can really feel that in between all of the country manager and the CEOs and the people running the project, there's a real brotherhood. Everybody exchange on how we can solve problem with the people in Ecuador, and it's one of the countries that I've worked in that I saw this really nice symbiotic mood between all the country managers. Just to make sure, we give the best image of what mining can bring to the country. That is something that in the other countries that I've worked in, it was more of a competition between the companies, and here this is totally the opposite. And in terms of investment highlight, what we want to say about the company is we're generating big cash flow. As I said, it's 5 million. You can make your own calculation. 5 million tons of copper we're selling every quarter. It costs us about $1, and it's sold at $4. It gets right into our treasury every quarter. We have 2 VMS that we think are going to be building the company. If it's not one, it's going to be the other, or both of them bringing a spectacular value. We try to protect our shareholder by not diluting in the cash flow we're making. We're able to continue doing the operation. We have no debt, so everything is going in the ground and into advancing the project. The project La Plata in Ecuador right now is going through a feasibility study that we're going to be delivering at the beginning of next year. And we're completing all the infill drilling and drilling also on some of the regional targets. That's going to push us into next year, starting to look into all the permits that are necessary to start building that operation. So thank you very much. I've tried to make it as brief as I could, and we're open for questions. And like I said, you can contact me or Fernando Ganosa, and also Igor Datina, who's always available. This is the email of Igor, and Igor is also on the line with us tonight. If you have any questions on anything very specific between me and Igor, I think we can tackle that.
Alain, we're going to come back to you with a lot of questions, but Mario has an immediate question. Mario?
Ali, because we have exchange over the new election, the new government in place, just a place. Is the new government looking to strengthen the mining code of Ecuador? You think in your mind?
Strengthening their mining code, you say? Yeah. The message that we heard, and obviously we talked to, and when we say we is through the Cámara Minera, so the mining chamber, where we're all part of on that call. The mining chamber and the different CEOs, we've had the chance of talking to the different candidates. And obviously what we wanted to do is we wanted to talk also to their the guys that would present himself as president or vice president. And even before the election, the winner of the election, Guillermo Lasso, had made very clear that he wants to see responsible mining, which is a good news for us. We're all doing our best, and everybody on this call, we have very high standard. There are other people operating in the country, probably not with the same standard that you're gonna hear about on that call. So I think for us, it's positive that they will strain a little bit what needs to be done and how mining needs to be done in the country. And the message, because he needed, first thing he needed to win the election. So whatever, as every politician, whatever you need to say, you're going to say it to win, and after we'll see. Right? So he was pretty harsh on some of his arguments and position on mining, but at the end, he's a banker. He works with the monetary fund. He knows that over 52% of the foreign investment in the country is linked to mining activities. So you can't just push it on the side and say we're going to forget about it. You have to take that into consideration. And also the monetary fund was very, very clear, talking with Guillermo Lasso. And Guillermo Lasso, as I said, he's a banker, talking with the monetary fund. They said, you guys have a big debt. How you're you need mining to get on its feet and work. So the message during what I say is we have to be cautious between a speech a politician is giving to win his election and what he needs to do to put the country back on its feet, because they've been they've been hurt very, very bad during this pandemic.
It was a good question. Alain, you're absolutely right. They got the young population, and oil and gas business is picking up right now. I think the last cycle, when it was the boom for oil and gas, they learned their lesson, putting too much emphasis onto it. In the meantime, they improved their infrastructure. As Brooke was talking about, if you want to go from the airport to Cascabel, most of the roads is almost like 4-lane highway, and the power costs in Ecuador are, I think, less about 5 cents. Brooke, remind me, about 5-6 cents a kilowatt.
It was about 6 cents the last time I looked, Terry, which was quite a bit cheaper than places like Chile.
Yeah, and quite the export potential of power, by the way. But you want to come back to this, Alain. Thanks for bringing this up. I want to go to Karl and talk about his projects and his aspirations in Ecuador. Karl? Christian, sorry. Christian.
Thank you, Terry.
I didn't mix you up. I know you are.
All right, I'll try to get through this as quickly as possible so I can get to the juicy questions. So what are we focused on? We're focused on building the next mine in Ecuador. So similar to Alain, we have a very high grade volcanic massive sulfide deposit. It happens to be the most economic copper development project in the world right now. And at spot prices today, we're well over 60% IRR after tax. So we have many milestones coming out over the next 6 months on our El Domo project, leading to the start of full-scale construction we expect about October of next year. Why are we so economic? It's first of all grade. The fact that we're 5.6% copper equivalent in the measured and indicated category, and secondly, because the majority of the mine plan is open pitable. So we plan to have a 15-year mine life, the first 10 years open pit. So the main milestones are, believe it or not, in the next few months, we'll be announcing our project finance package for an expected $175 million. This is prior to the feasibility study. This rarely happens, but it's a testament of the very high quality project we have, resource that we have, and the fact we've locked in orientation of the project and won't change much between now and the feasibility study. We are also, will be ready to submit the environmental impact assessment done to Equator Principles by August of this year. We're going to wait until the new ministers are in place, but we'll get that process started. And then the feasibility study is expected in October of this year. So very exciting next few months, really a culmination of the last 3 years of us working in Ecuador on this project. While we're advancing the feasibility study and all these other aspects, we are drilling for new discovery. We've got a project next to Brooke at Cornerstone that we're going to be drilling later this year called Santiago, that we're very excited about, has similarities to Solaris's Warintza project. And we're also going to be drilling around our El Domo deposit for new discoveries. And you'll see in the next couple of weeks additional drill results from our Paheli porphyry district, where we started drilling summer of last year. Corporately, we've been quite successful in raising capital. We've raised 100 million in equity in the last 4 years. We've got $45 million in cash investments. That takes us to first quarter of next year. And as a result, fully financed to make at least a construction light decision at El Domo early next year. And you'll see our shareholder register is dominated by financially driven strategic investors and major institutional investors. We have built a company very similar to my peers on this phone call, maximizing the Ecuadorian content. All of our employees in Ecuador are Ecuadorian. I mentioned our relationship with the Salazars, a very successful exploration group in Ecuador. They are a minority partner in all 3 projects. But I think the most important group that we have involved in the company is Nobis. They're the largest industrial conglomerate in Ecuador. We are their only mining investment. They're very well connected to all levels of government. They co-own the largest deepwater port in country, and they're betting on us to build the next major mine in the country as well. This presentation, by the way, is on our website. You can look at these charts at your leisure. VMSs are great deposits, as Alain said, because they're high grade. They have good or low capital cost intensity. A junior developer actually has the option of building these type of projects, whereas most porphyry developers actually have to sell their projects because of the big capital commitment. So we're one of a few copper developers globally that we think we have that optionality. We can actually build it ourselves. And as a result of the high grades that we have, we expect to have negative all-in sustaining costs per pound of copper produced. And then finally, the bottom chart here, El Domo is all about cash flow, free cash flow. This is a free cash flow machine to build a major mining company. We just looked at what these Canadian producers produced last year from an operating cash flow perspective using spot pricing. And if you apply that to our project in year 1, we would have exceeded the operating cash flow of all these companies. Simple capital structure, 131 million shares out. We've gone on a roller coaster ride like I think most of my peers' share prices over the last few years, but seem to have good momentum on the stock. Currently, we're behind the Ecuadorian elections. I think there's been a tick up in most of our share prices as a result. We're the top base metal developer pick of several of these brokers and banks in Canada, including National Bank. Our shareholder register is very strategic and institutionally heavy. You can see 2 royalty streaming companies in Altius and Wheaton Precious Metals, a private equity group in Greenstone Resources, Nobis, who I talked about previously, and then over 35 institutions with really a global presence, as shown in the pie chart to the right. From a management perspective, I was employee number 1. We've added to the team as required professionals from major mining companies, and they've generally left their firms to join Adventus as an entrepreneurial organization. If we have the privilege of building this mine, we expect to build a significant mining company out of that cash flow from El Domo. And our board is a group of individuals, different varying backgrounds that are fairly well known in the mining sector. ESG, carbon footprint, clear importance, and will only become more important going forward. So as Alain mentioned, Ecuador is primarily hydropower. We will be connected to the grid, second cheapest power in South America. Grade is king. Grade reduces your carbon footprint. High grade means you have to move less tons of material to produce a ton of copper. So our footprint is considerably smaller than most mines, copper mines in the world. Efficient logistics, we're less than 200 kilometers away from the deepwater port that Nobis owns, primarily on the Pan American Highway. Then you're off in the Pacific Ocean to take your pick a smelter. Our project is expected to generate over 500 million in investments, taxes, and royalties during the life of mine, which is a major multiplier effect, as you know, in the mining sector. Generally, Ecuadorians are looking for jobs, jobs, and jobs. We're in the poorest province of Ecuador, and we have very good support from our communities. With the Salazars and Novus, we've been developing short-term, medium-term, and long-term activities. Specific with Novus, they have a foundation like the Lundin Foundation, and we're reactivating the university campus next to our project to provide skill sets in various vocations, including in the mining sector. Our projects are all on the western side of the Andes. We have a major mining company operating right next to each of our 3 projects. Each of the projects have at least 2 roads to them. And you can see the ownership levels in the 3 projects, with the minority ownership being Salazar Resources. The table, again, this is on our website, highlights what Terrence mentioned, all the some of the highlights of the major mining companies that have entered into Ecuador over the last few years. We only see that growing with Lasso as president. The resource that is the basis of the feasibility study is shown in this table here. It's a single volcanic massive sulfide lens. Majority is 40 to 80 meters below surface. And you can see the grades here, which are exceptional for open pit. 2% copper, 3.2 grams gold, 3.2% zinc, 55 grams silver, and a little bit of lead. If you looked at it from a gold perspective, it's 2.5 million ounces of gold equivalent at over 8 grams gold equivalent with a 6-to-1 strip ratio. We've now acquired all the surface rights to build a mine. We do have a mining permit on this district, and we will be submitting the environmental assessment permit in late 3rd quarter of this year. I mentioned previously regional exploration. So as Alain mentioned, VMS deposits tend to occur in clusters. The Salazars, when they discovered this, focused the majority of their attention on the El Domo deposit in the center of the screen. We came into this district thinking airborne geophysics is a great tool for discovering VMSs, especially if they're close to surface. It never had been done before. We flew it for the first time in 2019. The 15 stars that are indicated on this map here are geophysical targets that were picked up that have never been drilled. Now the plan is to drill each of these sequentially over the next few years. And through 2021, our focus will be the 7 VMS targets to the east of El Domo. Interestingly, each of them has a larger geophysical footprint than El Domo. So part of our plan here over the next few years is to make a new discovery to augment the production at El Domo. We have been drilling some of the best copper equivalent drill results in the world. You can take a look at our press releases the last 4 months. They generally range between 20 to 40 meters of 5% copper equivalent to 10 to 20 meters of 10 to 20% copper equivalent. And we get numbers as high as 50% copper equivalent over 2 to 5 meters as well. With the open pit component of the mine plan being this red outline in the foreground of the screen. You can see it's been deforested. No one lives here. We own all the surface rights, and it's gently rolling hills. A few years ago, we put out a PEA on this project. We hired DRA Engineering last summer to complete the feasibility study. They completed an internal pre-feasibility study for us in December of last year, improving on the PEA economics using the same price deck. And that is the basis now of the final feasibility study. We are expecting in the feasibility study somewhere between a 45 to 50% after-tax IRR at long-term metal pricing, with a capital cost in the $175 to $185 million range, lowest quartile cash costs, and we produce copper, zinc, and lead concentrates very clean with no deleterious elements. Key milestones to reiterate: project finance package this summer to finance 80 to 85% of all our needs to get to commercial production. The ESIA submittal, the feasibility study completion in October, which all culminates in, we're assuming, a 12-month approval process for the ESIA. It took less for Frutal Norte, and the start of construction in October 2022, 15-month build, so your first production is early 2024. This project is beautiful in terms of the metals backdrop. with about 50% of the NSR revenues being precious metals and 50% base. Separately, we have the big lottery ticket upside in the company, which is the porphyry districts that we're exploring in the Pijili district and the Santiago district. As mentioned, we'll have drill results from Pijili in the next few weeks on our first of 18 geophysical targets developed in the project surrounding Southern Copper's 1.5 billion ton porphyry project in feasibility study. And Santiago, we will start drilling there in the third quarter of this year, hopefully. So a preview of the upcoming results at Pijili. So keep in mind, this has never been drilled before, this area on the southeast of the bottom right of the page. Here's Chaucha up here, Southern Copper. It's about 5 kilometers away from this big geophysical target that was developed. Our discovery hole was out in October. We drilled 65 meters of 0.45% copper equivalent from surface, including 9 meters of 2% copper equivalent. 700 meters to the north of that at Merc 2, we drilled 145 meters of 0.3% copper equivalent. Very interesting results, especially the first 2 holes ever drilled in the porphyry system. We continue to drill wide-spaced holes. These are 300-400 meter step-out holes. As you go to the north, as we've been going to the north, the vein density has been improving, the mineralization has been getting stronger, and so we've got 9 holes to come to market in the next few weeks, outlining what we've seen here to the north on this target. So stay tuned on that. Santiago. So this is what many of our shareholders are excited. So Brooke mentioned Caña Brava, the joint venture or earn-in he has with Newcrest. It's a very substantial earn-in. We're right next to it to the east. Sol Gold is down here to the southwest. This is their second highest priority regional exploration project in Ecuador. So this, like the district where Richard has Aurania and where Orense is one of the more interesting districts in the country. We flew airborne geophysics a few years ago over our land package, and what is in particular of interest is this green circular feature, which we think is a very large porphyry, which partially goes over onto Caña Brava. We currently have technical teams in the fields, but I'll give the analogy of Solaris's Warintza in this project. So this was Solaris's Warintza was drilled over 20 years ago. Shallow holes, about 150 million ton resource, copper moly around 0.6% copper equivalent. 20 years later, they come back here. They're drilling 1 kilometer holes. They're on their way to a 1 billion ton resource, and they're aided by modern geophysics. So the analogy then to what we have here is these lines indicate the drilling from Newmont in the mid-1990s, so 25 years ago, drilled shallow down to 325 meter depth. You can see some of the results here. The best result being 323 meters of 0.65% copper equivalent. There's 170 meters of 0.9. Most of these holes ended mineralization. You could arm wave a similar sized resource to what Warintza had. 25 years later, we come in with airborne geophysics and we see just where Newmont ended the holes is the top of this big mag glow, this alteration halo, which we think is the porphyry center. And that's 3 kilometers across, 2.2 kilometers deep, and 2 kilometers into the page. So just like at Warintza, we're going to be drilling 1 kilometer holes into the system starting later this year, meant to partially twin some of these historical holes and go much deeper. 1 drill hole here could double our share price. So stay tuned for mobilization of drilling, and this could be a good one. So to conclude, we think we got a good mix here at Adventus of high impact exploration on big systems such as Pijili and Santiago, but then backstopped by a very attractive VMS project in El Domo, which we should have the majority of the project financing in place shortly, and we hope to start construction next year. And we're backstopped by a very strong Ecuadorian content, both in terms of investors, and Ecuadorians. So I'll stop it there.
Thank you. Terry, unmute.
Thanks, Christian. Thanks for the presentation. Before I go around for general questions, what's your budget for the year in terms of exploration in Ecuador, calendar year?
Yeah, our budget for exploration is about $5 million US. So we're spending 15% of our treasury approximately on exploration. The majority of it is the feasibility study, ESIA, geotechnical drilling, all that kind of stuff.
Terry, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Christian, how's the permitting process in Ecuador? Is it long?
Well, there's two major mines currently in production in Ecuador. Frutal Norte was the first that went through the first or the modern permitting regime. It took less than 12 months to get the environmental assessment. So they've gone through already that process. They're people that know how the process works. Since then, they've simplified the permitting process by combining the water and environment ministries. So we'd hope that it would be a more streamlined approach than for Frutal Norte, but there are not many sample sets for the project. What we like at El Domo is it's not a controversial project. There's no indigenous populations, we're low elevation, there's no major watersheds, don't need to move anybody, etc. And we've done everything to Equator principles and the highest international standards. So and it's a small project. So we're hoping that it's an easy one for Lasso to get his team excited about and to get it approved and be that third major mine in Ecuador.
Okay, good. And how many jobs it's going to create? My last question.
Sorry, say again?
How many jobs will it create in the country? Direct and indirect, do you see?
Yeah, it's over 600 people during construction, and then it would be 100, 150 direct jobs during production. And then you have a multiplier effect of 3 to 4 times of that for indirects.
As Biden says, high-paying jobs. You have to say that. I start the session with geology, what attracts everybody to Ecuador, but now we're talking economic geology, and in that sense, it can be anywhere, but you always want to be in a premium country. Do you think, Christian, Alain, and Richard, and as well Brooke, you're in a premium country whereby your assets going to be priced better rather than a discount because of the majors, because of the mining laws and fiscal responsibilities, and as well maybe the infrastructure? Christian, you go first. I'll go back.
Yeah, and that's a very good question, and I've been asked that multiple times. Just when we entered into Ecuador, is everything going to be? Are you going to actually be able to re-rate like other companies around the world? So I point to Lundin Gold. They have a phenomenal deposit there. They've done a great job, but it is in Ecuador. That trades in the high end of the multiples for mid-tier producers. Also, SolGold is, I'll just look at it from a market cap perspective. It's one of the largest market cap base metal developers globally. So you can get good market caps and good valuations. And part of that is driven by access to capital. By my count, Ecuador has been in the #1 spot in the last few years in Latin America for attracting public markets equities. So it used to be Mexico, used to be Peru. Ecuador is #1. So by attracting money, you can get new discoveries, and you can also develop strong multiples as well.
Okay, so the analyst in you, Christian, you're doing well. Alain, coming from a very expensive company, Agnico Eagle, high multiple. How would you answer this question about being in a premium country? And you're in both jurisdictions, Colombia and Ecuador. How would you compare that?
Yeah, I think, and we were talking earlier on the voting results in the country. That's going to help a lot. If you want to have a real good comparison, is you have to look at how the bonds in the country moved the minute this guy was elected, how the country risk went down the minute this guy was elected. So I think, the company on this call will have a re-rating just because we have a guy that understands business in the country, is going to do everything to put it back on its feet. So I think we're going to reap the benefit of a good election, a good choice. So I think, yes, we're in for a good evaluation. And as Christian was saying, the market is quite open to financing. They were not that hot, 5-6 years ago, but now with the work that's been done and the majors that are in the country and the proven work that's been progressing, we are in a good seat. So I think there's going to be a major re-rating of everyone on that call.
Fantastic. Richard?
Terry, I think that, it's very much a regional play. The other guys have been talking about where they are relative to tidewater and ports and that kind of thing. On the southeastern side, on the eastern side of the Andes where we are, I think we need a catalyst. And I think there are a whole bunch of deposits. Well, we know there are a whole bunch of copper deposits that are sitting there waiting to go into production. We need one high-grade deposit to put everyone else in play. And I think that Solaris has done that. So they're, getting 600 meters and more than that at 1% copper. That is going to be the key that unlocks this whole region. And I think that there's going to be an absolute bun fight between the majors, because the majors cannot sit by and see a major copper district just get taken out from under them. And whoever moves first amongst the majors is going to be in the pound seat in terms of driving one of the major new copper belts of the Andes. And, I think that the majors have been in a privileged position of being able to sort of sit back and say, okay, well, we'll watch these juniors and see the way they develop, to suddenly one of fear of saying, hey, and unless I move, I'm going to get cut out of here. So it goes from a sort of geological risk where you can always hedge your bets. And normally if you say no, the risk is too the geological risk is too high and you get away with it. I think the risk has now moved to, unless we move now, in the next couple of months, in the next 6 months, we're going to be cut out of this area. And I think we, as junior companies that do most of the exploration and the real tough grunt work in the jungle, I think it puts us into a really, really exciting situation. I agree with what the other guys have said. I think Glassor, he was seen as the underdog, and I had to smile a lot at all the commentaries that were coming out as to, what the government was going to be like. And, the Ecuadorian people came through in spades for us at the end of the day, not for us, for themselves. And I think we're going into an incredibly exciting time, not only in having political stability, financial stability in the country, but I think the majors had better move pretty quickly if they want to get in on this act. Otherwise, they're going to be cut out.
Richard, we're in a very incestuous business. Everybody knows everybody. There's constant debates and discussions among ourselves in the industry. I don't think I've seen any of the majors except I guess Lundin Gold. They inherited obviously the property, but the other ones are not necessarily very active. I'm going to say that I'm going to have a scale in exploration. They're watching the mid caps and the other landowners. Have you seen any newcomers or anybody that actually kind of thrown the towel and walked away?
Sure, I think the newcomer is right out in the open. I don't want to read too much into the appointment of a Barrick senior executive to the board of Solaris Resources. Mark Bristow is an exploration geologist. He is a guy who doesn't depend on other people to bring projects up through the ranks. He can go and talk to the geologist that's sitting on the core rig, and in a nanosecond, he will get a concept. And I think that the appointment of, and if I'm not reading too much into it, the appointment of that Barrick executive, the M&A guy, to the board of Solaris Resources, is this Bristow raising the flag saying, I'm coming into this country and I'm coming after you. And I think that Bristow will move far faster than most other mining, larger companies, and they must be needing a change of underwear at this stage with Bristow, raising the flag and saying, I'm coming. And this is typical of the guy. This is what he always does. He always says, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and he does it. So I think that announcement by Solaris a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever, was an absolute game changer from Ecuador. And this is the guy. He'll look at the political risk and he'll say, okay, I can live with that. He came in when, or a lot of the pundits were saying that we were going to get another government. And, I think he read his tea leaves perfectly. And he made his move just before the election went the right way. And I think that announcement was an absolute game changer from Ecuador, because this guy doesn't play by the rules. He doesn't care what anyone thinks of him. He will do what he thinks is right for his shareholders. And you better look out if he's sitting on your hands.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm going to pass the baton to Eric in a second. Just one question to Brooke. Brooke, what's the ideal, if you were to write the book on the company, what would the final chapter say? You want to, obviously you're being courted by literally giving your asset base and giving your interest in the properties. You're being courted very well. I mean, you get 2 bids already on the company by SolGold, which you defended the shareholders well by saying it's not fair value for the shareholders. And do you want to, I guess you're expecting another one from BHP or whoever's going to be at the end of the day, or jointly. What's the epilogue, would you say, for, give me 2 scenarios?
Well, look, I agree with what the other gentlemen have just said, and particularly what Richard said about, once one of the majors moves, it will kind of start a bit of an avalanche there. I think that Cascabel is going to be acquired within the next 12 months. I'm pretty confident that both SolGold and Cornerstone will end up being acquired. And I think just because of the size of Cascabel, and Terry, you visited there with me, and you went to the ministries with us a few years ago, and you saw the lay of the land, and you followed it, and you know that this is a multi-generational project. It's going to end up in the hands of one or more major mining companies. And I think that will raise all boats and create a lot of buzz about Ecuador. And I think it's going to happen within the next 12 months. And I think that there will be this is the place where everybody wants to be. And I thought something similar when I saw the news release that Richard referred to about Kevin Thompson of Barrick being appointed to the Solaris board. It's kind of interesting. Even big gold companies like Barrick can look at copper projects. I think as long as they don't have more than 20 or 25% of copper in the mix, they don't lose their gold multiple. So I think there's going to be exciting times ahead in the next 12 to 24 months for all these companies. And as one of the other guys said on the call earlier, Ecuador is where all the many major deposits are going to be discovered in the next 10 years or so. And before I end, I would just like to give some credit to Ivan Crepeau, our VP Exploration, without whom Cornerstone would not be where we are today. Ivan was there in the early times, as I said, when no majors would go into Ecuador. People used to say, oh, it's a great deposit, too bad it's in Ecuador. Well, they're not saying that now. Things have really flipped. And so I'd like to give a lot of credit to Ivan Krapo because he had a lot to do with the discovery of Cascabel.
Ivan, you're there. Just wave your arms so people see who you are. Just wave your hand. Okay, thanks. Before I pass on, sorry, Eric, one more question. The Christian and I were talking about it a few days ago. I think he and I think the same way, and he put a very good proposal on the table, is saying that government change, leadership change. IMF still very much involved in the country, fiscal responsibility and all. I'm sure every government would look for a headline, and I'm sure they would welcome a bigger company doing acquisition and stop building mines. Christian, you want to second that? I'm taking the word. You and I, we discussed that yesterday, the day before.
Yeah, well, we talked about you started all of this talking about multiples, and there's not any activity better than a Barrick buying a Solaris. That money being recycled into the sector, and for people believing in that the next one's going to be taken out. Let's say Cornerstone and SolGold. My belief on this is it's probably a few quarters away because you want to have the mining minister, all the ministers in place. You want LASA to come up with the official policies on mining if there are any tweaks here or there. But I think come end of the third quarter, fourth quarter, the game is on, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Solaris and maybe many of the companies on this call sold in the next 18 to 24 months.
No more forward questions from me.
Terry,
I'll let Eric to ask the question.
I'm just going to say, Mario, if you don't mind, thank you, gentlemen, you four gentlemen, to have made these great presentations. Very interesting. I'm not a special of the Andean geology, but one thing I'll summarize that basically by saying, Chile and Peru are much more mature jurisdictions, and I see Ecuador as being basically the beautiful new teenager on the street. And so there's an attraction for that, and I'm sure that we'll effectively see in a couple of years or months materialize. And so I think we're seeing, with the invention of Mr. Thompson, with Barrick, effectively, Mr. Bristow will probably be very active in the coming, I should say not years, but months probably. And so I find that very interesting. So what I also find interesting in terms of the geology is this potential for new types of discoveries. We thought that VMS were maybe not associated with Ecuador, the sediment strata-bound hydrothermal type of deposits either. So I see a lot of potential in that regards. And so there's always some new geological model that will make, I think, Ecuador very, very interesting. So I guess my question is, in terms of getting back to the social acceptability, what is the future for bulk mining underground operations in Ecuador, minimizing, I guess, the surface impact? And I understand it can be variation in terms of where you're exactly located, but I'm just wondering for you gentlemen, how do you see the future in terms of Ecuadorians really being able to profit and preserving their beautiful environment that they have over there and their rich historical culture? How do you see things evolving? I think one of the questions in the chat was, will there be restrictions in terms of open pit mining perhaps? And so everything will have to be underground. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts in that regards, gentlemen. Maybe start with you, Brooke.
I know during, someone sent me a summary in Spanish yesterday of Guillermo Lasso's positions on the mining sector. And I note that he said that he was going to simplify the procedures for getting environmental licenses, but that they were also going to closely look at open pit mining. All I would say to that is that one of the speakers on the call mentioned, I think it was Alain, that there was a lot of promises made during the campaign. I think we have found the Ecuadorian Environmental Ministry to be quite thorough. There are no pushovers, and the standards are very, very high. And so we'll see. I don't think I think things are going to get better from here on.
So you see a lot
yeah,
of opportunities, right?
Yeah, I really don't have much to add.
Okay, Richard, I maybe to ask you the same question, but also if you could just talk about, in terms of local expertise, what are the geological schools in Ecuador? And I'm just wondering, in terms of both on the engineering side and the geology side, do they have schools, and can we see effectively if we're at the cusp of a new mining jurisdiction that's highly attractive, if they'll be able to have expertise and people that are knowledgeable?
Yeah, there are a bunch of geological and engineering schools around the country. Generally, the guys are not, they come out of school pretty green. They don't have the same sort of opportunity to get great experience like the Peruvians and Chileans have got. But in a way, that is a massive advantage. I mean, the worst explorer you can possibly have is some guy that thinks he knows everything because some flippin', professor told him something, and the professor never set foot in the ground and on the ground in exploration. So in fact, all of our geologists are Ecuadorian except for our VPX. So we're training them. We are getting real top experts in the various different fields, in porphyries and epithermals, in the sediment-hosted copper, into the field with these guys and doing the training in the field on their own project. And that is the quickest way to get the guys to be sort of, experts in their field. The other thing that we're doing is, we work with, all of our, helpers are indigenous. We're exploring in an incredibly rough part of the country. Physically, you have to be as fit as a fiddle to get in there. And, these young indigenous guys from the area, that they skip over the mud, they never fall, it is their environment. Their powers of observation are absolutely mind-boggling, and so we're training those guys up as prospectors, in-house training, and these guys are just so motivated, and they are just like sponges. I mean, they capture what we're looking for, why are we looking for it, and that kind of thing. So, today, I don't think there's a huge pool of expertise generally. I mean, obviously SolGold and Solaris and those more advanced companies and the guys on this panel have trained up their own guys, and those guys would be way ahead of ours in terms of development. But there's a huge crop of youngsters that is really eager to learn, and that's really exciting.
Well, I fully concur, and I think it's important to think outside the box. And effectively, I think that's another opportunity over here where it's been highly underexplored, and maybe this new generation will be able to effectively think outside the box. I'm wondering, Christian, you mentioned the VMS, and usually they come in a pearl of strings. Just wondering how you see potentially eventually Ecuador emerging as a well-renowned VMS camp. And I'll get back to you, Richard, in terms of the Kupferschiefer, because I think that's most interesting also. But Kristen, I'm wondering if you've had any comment about, as you see the potential for VMS really.
Well, there is a belt there in the already defined in the rolling hills going into the highlands, and Alain's La Plata is on the northern end, and then you got Macuchi, old Macuchi mine in the middle, and then you've got the Curipamba district with El Domo. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more to be found. It's just the whole point we're making. Ecuador is, now I like to say Ecuador is like 50 to 70. I would say Ecuador is like Peru was maybe 75 years ago, Chile 50 years ago. So it's really in infancy, and that belt should continue all the way down through Ecuador and into northern Peru, where you've got some very large VMSs near the border. So it is definitely a deposit type to continue to explore for, and I'm sure there will be more success.
Yeah, one comment I'll make in that regards is that, VMS deposits usually have, at least if we take the example of La Ronde, great vertical extension. So it can be very interesting underground mines. In that regards, Alain, I was wondering if you mentioned maybe that it was some drill holes that were close to surface. And I know there's attraction sometimes to start with a starter pit, but I'm just wondering for your La Plata project, effectively, if you see really the potential again here for pearl strings and other deposits, but also how do you see the project being developed in terms of an operation? You're saying it feasibility by the end of, beginning of 2022, right?
Yeah, so the really we did all the work on the infill and the drilling last year. We were able to reach a very good conversion ratio. So most of our resource will become a reserve, and at the same time we've been able to continue tagging some new targets on this. So the sequence is the classic sequence. So last year we've been able to do the infill drilling. This year it's going to be merging this into a mining plan, optimizing the metallurgy and finishing the feasibility study. So by the beginning of next year, we have a full feasibility study in hand, and we're way down the line with the environmental permits. So the environmental permits, and I think we've touched that earlier on, the government is very focused in finding a way to get those environmental permits out of the door. So I think, for Christian, for all of us who have advanced project, this is good news in our ears. We want to see those permits out of the door, and that's going to bring us into construction stage very, very soon. And during all that time, we'll be drilling and fed with our operating mine in Colombia.
Okay, maybe Brooke, to understand, you're partnered with NME, ENAMI, which is I believe the Ecuadorian exploration. I would say probably here in Quebec it would be the equivalent of a SOCAM. I'm just wondering, are they proactive with other companies in Ecuador, or you're the only one? I'm just trying to see how, in terms of grassroots exploration, how active they are, and eventually, do you foresee, a bit like Quebec, that they'll probably maybe make some variants and have maybe some companies that, or I should say, state-owned entities that will be proactive participants with the industry? Do you see potential for that being developed?
It's hard to say, Eric. To my knowledge, we're the only company that has a strategic exploration alliance with ANAMI. Now, the Ecuadorian ANAMI is not a large entity like the ANAMI in Chile. It's a smaller company, but they've been very supportive of us. The reason we got in bed with ANAMI back in 2016 was because the cadastre was closed at the time, and it was either Ivan or one of our lawyers, or the two of them, that figured out that under the mining law, ANAMI had a preferential right to apply for anything anywhere in the country, as long as it wasn't in a national park or a protected area, a SNAP area. And so because we couldn't get concessions any other way, we started talking to them, and we said, listen, we will identify the areas because we have a big database of public and private information, and then we will identify the areas for you. You apply for them for the benefit of our Strategic Exploration Alliance, and that's what we did. And so we think we got kind of pick of the litter of the areas up there around Cascabel at a time before the public bidding for the concessions happened in 2000, started I think in 2017. and Richard alluded to the problems they had with the system then, and the $236 million promise to spend over 4 years of one foreign company. And the problem the Ecuadorians had was that they did not include some kind of a small bid bond that would have been forfeited if you didn't spend it. And so hopefully they've learned from the experience, and when the cadastre does get reopened, they will have learned and will have a little different rules. Although I must say, for some of the companies on the call that already have properties, the fact that the cadastre stays closed a little longer is not really a bad thing, because if you're a major and you want to, or a mid-sized company and you want to get into Ecuador and it's closed, well, then the best way to get in is to find somebody who's got a concession. And so that's a lot of the companies on the call. So we could actually benefit from that.
Interesting.
As-tu d'autres questions? On est rendu à 8h33.
Ouais, maybe just the last one very quickly. Richard, you piqued my curiosity with the, I think there's some NAD that's making some noise. I don't know what that is, but anyways, Richard, you mentioned the Cooper Schiefer as a new type of deposit. Those, if I'm not mistaken, in Poland and southeastern Germany are underground mines, right? Maybe we lost Richard. Maybe that was the screeching we heard.
Eric, no, sorry, I was just finding my unmute button.
Okay.
Eric, yeah, there were underground mines, and I think going back to the sort of broader discussion that there was about the open pits earlier, I actually listened to the interview where Lasso was talking about the open pits on the radio, and it was reported a little bit differently from the way he actually said it. But anyway, that's semantics at this stage. I don't think I think he was a little bit misquoted. But I think that the real issue that we should be focusing on is the tailings. Not so much the open pits. I mean, unfortunately, we've had those horrific failings of the tailings dams in Brazil that just highlight the problem with these things. And any company that's out there has got to be planning dry stack tailings, and tailings have got to be what we're all looking at, right from exploration phase that we're at, and thinking about, and that's of course one of the huge advantages of underground mining. You can put a lot of your tailings back underground and minimize what's above ground. But yeah, it was mainly underground mining, and in the African copper belts as well. Ivanhoe has got those magnificent discoveries in the Congo, and those are going to be underground as well. And in our environment, it's so mountainous and all that kind of thing. I think we'll probably end up, assuming that we make a decent sized discovery, it's probably going to be prioritized for underground.
Okay, and the Lost Cities project, is it near the Loma Larga deposit of INV Metals?
No, it's on it's a completely different belt, different province.
Okay.
C'est bon comme ça, mon Eric?
Wait, I could ask more questions, but gentlemen, I want to thank you guys a lot. It was very interesting, and definitely, like I said earlier on, Ecuador to me is effectively the re-emerging beauty that perhaps for South America for sure. So congratulations.
Merci, Eric. Thank you. That's gonna be the last question because it's 8:36. It's for you, Brooke. I wanted to know how much is the government of Ecuador is making money with the mining industry in terms of a percentage of the GDP?
I don't have a good answer for you, Mario, but maybe Ricardo Valdez might have that answer.
Ricardo?
Yes, I have the answer. It's less than 2 points. Then 2%, less than 2%.
Okay. Is there any forecast from the Ecuadorian government for the coming years as the mining activities is increasing? Are they forecasting any numbers?
Yes, they have forecasted numbers since several years ago. It should have reached already 4% in GDP, but as you know, with the pandemic and the closure of the cadastre and the granting of new concessions, well, this is something that has definitely affected. And we've seen a lot of instability in the Vice Ministry of Mines for the last years here in Ecuador. Unfortunately, under the current administration, we are very hopeful to see and expect the creation of a new mining ministry, as President Lasso offered. So they will upgrade again the mining sector, because as you know, the mining sector is right now mixed with hydrocarbons and with electricity. So it's a big responsibility for a minister just to manage those three crucial sectors.
Okay, thank you very much.
And Mario, sorry, if I can just chip in, I've got a couple of other figures. In terms of export earnings in 2019, mining was about 265 million, and then in 2020, with the opening of Fruta del Norte and Mirador, that jumped up almost 4 times to about 810 million. And the direct tax income last year was about 430 million. So this is a massive growing area. It's the quickest growing area of the economy at the moment. As Ricardo says, there've been some challenges in the last year, but hopefully we can get over those.
But they're probably understanding that they're making some money with that industry, and that industry is there to stay because the goods, it's in their backyard.
Mario, yeah, and one of the other things about the Ecuadorian constitution that isn't particularly well understood is that the local communities around a mining operation, plus the provincial government, gets 60% of the royalty that's supposed to flow to the federal government. And in the case of Fruta del Norte, I mean, these aren't their numbers, they're us just doing the calculation. That means something like $2 million a month flowing into those, not only the province, but it's split between the province and the communities around the mine. And that's in addition to all the other work that Landina has done in stimulating small economy and getting local services and that kind of thing. So mining's impact, responsible mining's impact on the local communities is absolutely life-changing.
Alain or Christian, do you want to have a last comment on this before we close on?
I think Richard said it very well, so I don't have anything further to add on this, but the life-changing aspects of what we can provide cannot be understated.
Okay, very good.
I would just like to make a small comment addition to what Richard just correctly mentioned, and is that last year in 2020, Ecuadorian exports of mining were above the flour export industry. The flour industry here in Ecuador has been active for at least 40 years. So imagine it's close to $1 billion US. It was over 900 million last year. And perhaps with regards to the 60% of the royalties, unfortunately, due to the lack of liquidity of the government, these royalties are not being sent as they should to provinces and to the regions and to the communities. So that is an issue that the new administration will have to face. But as you know, Ecuador has been going through a very severe economic crisis. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Valdez. As we're going to be closing, Luke, si tu peux mettre juste, there's a contact of contact of Brooke, Mr. Spencer with Caroline, Alain with Igor, Mr. Simard. Feel free to take their email if you have any more questions you would like to ask them or send to them. And in closing, Luke, I'd like to thank our presenter, Brooke. That was a pleasure to have you. Very, very strong video. I was really touched. It's an example for the old mining industry, I'm telling you. Thank you very much for your presence. Thanks also to Yvan. Merci beaucoup. Thank you. Richard, it was great to have you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Also, Caroline, Atico Mining, Alain Bureau, merci beaucoup. Igor, thank you very much for your presence tonight. And Adventus Mining, thank you very much, Christian, for being with us tonight. Terry, once again, good job. Eric, same to you. Merci beaucoup. Thanks to our sponsors, CIM, MRAG, Investor Intel, The Cloud, MI3 team, Luc at the mastermind in the back, and all the MI3 teams. Let's revisit in 3-4 months, and let's redo this. And you know what? It was an amazing presentation. I know, Eric, you have something to say?
No, I was just going to say, I put on the chat just saying that there seems to be very great opportunities and a great future for Ecuador. So thank you again, gentlemen. And this was most interesting.
Wow,
thank
very
you.
good.
Merci
And
beaucoup.
guys, I have some demand for your presentation. If you kindly want to send me the presentation you have done right here tonight, I will forward it to some people in the chat. Mr. Valdez, it's a great pleasure to meet you. Thank you very much. And I hope that when I go to visit Ecuador, I'll come and visit you.
Mario, thank you from me. And,
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
again, hopefully we start early next time and finish early.
That's it.
Au revoir.